On the SAT or ACT, you might have a question that's seeking to know if you remember what correlation is. Correlation simply tells you how strong of a trend your data is indicating. So I want you to understand that correlation really is a number. It can be calculated. However, we're not going to go into the detail on how to calculate correlation because that's typically not asked on the SAT or ACT. But just so you know, correlation is a number from -1 to +1. And the symbol for correlation is actually R. So R can be -1 at the lowest, or it can be 1 at the highest. And when it's neutral, R is 0. So the closer you are to -1, the stronger you are. So if it's closer to -1, this would be a strong negative correlation. If it's closer to 1 or at 1, it's a strong positive correlation. And if it's at 0, it means you have no correlation at all. So let's have a look at the graphs on the left over here and try to make sense of them. When you look at these data points that have been graphed, they clearly have a trend. They're all leaning to the right. And if you drew a line of best fit, it would clearly be like a line leaning to the right. So that's giving you a strong positive. And if I had to guess, this would probably have an R value of 0.75 or higher. So between 0.7 and 1, because it's a strong positive. The next one is a strong negative because it has a clear trend. It's clearly going downward. And since it's a strong negative, it might be anywhere from 0.75 to -1. All right, so the next one has a weak positive correlation because it's seemingly leaning to the right, but it's not as clear as the one above it. It's not as clear as this one over here. So that would be a weak positive. And if I had to guess, the R value for this would be somewhere between 0 and maybe 0.5. And to the right of that, you have a moderate negative. So again, it's clearly going downward, but you see the points are not as tight. They're not as near the line of best fit as the one above it, this one over here. So this would be a weak or moderate negative. So again, guessing the R value for this might be closer to maybe -0.5-ish, like right in the middle of this. So the next graph down here is really not showing any trend. We can't tell if the graph is going this way or this way. The points are just spread everywhere. And that will be a no correlation. So the R value here, if you had to guess it, would of course be 0, or very close to 0. And last but not least, we have this one that has a weak negative. So we can see that it's clearly falling, but this one is even more spread out than the one above it. At least on the moderate negative, we could see that there is a trend and that line was closer to all the points. This one here, the points are farther away from the line of best fit. So if you were to guess this, the weak negative would be an R value of anywhere from 0.75 to maybe 1. And that's all there is about correlation. So let's look at an actual SAT example to see how this question might be phrased. Which of the following graphs best shows a strong negative association between D and T? So we know negative association is going to be falling. So which graph gives us a strong falling trend? That would have to be graph D. It's the one that's clearly falling. This one over here is like a weak negative. This one here is a very weak positive, almost no correlation. And C is a very strong. So D is the one that shows us a strong negative association.